map. Today I thought I'd show you the other bits. So we're down here in the village of Braceborough. We've got some sell points down here, so I'm just going to show you those very quickly on the way up. So at the minute the gates are all closed, but essentially they're supposed to be on a timer and not open during the evening, but the gates are not locked by the looks of it, so it's easy enough to drive in. Bog standard sell point, takes grain, anything you produce on the farm really, basically, or anything that you grow in the farm. It won't take productions. And then we'll drive up to where the stables are. I don't think I showed this last time, but there's a bale sale point down this track, which is where the sheep farm was, for those of you that were watching the first time round. But further down the track, so that's the sheep farm off to the right. But if you drive further down here towards the church and the hall, as all the textures start popping in, you can see there's a sale point here, which originally was just a single gate, but it proved to be absolutely impossible to get into, so that had to change. But it's just a bog standard sell point for bales, and I think it'll take chopped sugar beet as well, so animal feed and bedding really. And then there's another sale point back up at the animal buy point, the animal dealer, which is the South Kesteven Auction Mart bale site, which is again a bog standard bale sell point. Ignore the missing textures. I've been messing around trying to replace some textures on the existing buildings and it didn't work very well, so I haven't finished doing that, but I'm in the midst of remaking a bunch of buildings. Since the last video, I've also rethought the multiple shop idea. As good as it is in theory, in practice it just isn't working. It doesn't work from a gameplay perspective or from a fun point of view. So I've pretty much ditched the idea of having two vehicle shops. So now the only vehicle shop is up at the John Deere dealership up in Manthorpe, but the existing site for the New Holland shop has been repurposed, and that is now going to be essentially a wholesaler distribution centre sort of thing, sell point for productions. So I'll swing by there in a minute and show you that as we drive out to the other side of the map that you haven't really seen yet. The farm, there's a farm in Wilsthorpe which I don't believe I showed last time, so we'll stop by there and just give you a sense of, this is a much flatter part of the map really. This is on the edge of the fens, and as I said, this area is quite low lying. It's very prone to water. Flooding isn't so much a problem because they've put massive ditches everywhere, but this, you can tell after the weather we've had fairly recently that it's a managed landscape, if you know what I mean, which is quite interesting, and the worst bit of the road network. So here we go. This is where the sell point for your productions is going to be, around the back of this building. Obviously it still needs finishing off and landscaping and so on, but there's going to be a little sell point there by that loading dock, which isn't in this version of the map, unfortunately. But it's in this, because this is a save game. I've been testing out various contracts and making sure all the info layers work. I had a problem with the info layers being the wrong size, so none of the lime and plough and spray levels were recording correctly. So this is the Wilsthorpe farmyard, which is going to be one of the options to start with. Some kind of basic outdoor storage and a couple of large storage barns. Some junk in the back. The ever-present fuel tank. All the farmyards have a fuel tank. And then come over here and we've got a shed, grain shed with a divider in it that you can use to store your crops, and fairly easy access to some of the surrounding fields, which is always nice. But there you go, you can see one of the big ditches that are in this area. And now we come over the bridge, and in reality the bridge here is a fairly simple affair, and in game it's even simpler because it's just a road, but clearly that needs to be modelled and redone. But I think I mentioned last time I'm not happy with the roads, and I'm looking to redo them all entirely, but I can't face doing them with a road kit, so I'm currently exploring options for doing them in Blender, but we'll see. Out here is the second shop, which is still a planned buy point for you to purchase big bags and pallets of things, and there's a bulk silo here where you can buy road salt and lime and also solid fert, and I'm going to put some tanks at the end for herbicide and liquid fert for you to buy in bulk. And now we're going to drive out the bottom end of the map, almost to the very southern end of the place. That plantation over there is going to hide a I've got an idea in my head for a essentially a contract system where you will take a contract to provide goods at a later date on a specified day, and then have to provide them, which is a bit more realistic than just planting stuff and selling it as and when you feel like it. But we'll see if I ever get that far. And so the delivery point will be in those woods. If I don't get that far, then it'll probably just end up being another sell point of some sort or other. And now we're driving out to what in reality is a Roman road, originally called King Street, and that runs almost all the way down towards Peterborough. Down to the right and up to the left it goes up and joins the A15, and this ditch on the left is again a Roman ditch. It goes right back to the Romans, and it's a massive thing in real life. It's actually bigger than it looks in game, and it looks pretty big in game. As you can see, the landscaping in this area is not anywhere near finessed or finished. But I'm coming up this way to show you a bit more of the map, and obviously this is very flat, fairly boring terrain, but it's got some nice fields, and it's also got another grain sell point, so this is completely made up sell point. There's nothing there in real life, but we need something, so there's a sell point there for your produce. And now we come up towards the garden centre, which is a bit more finished off and looks a little bit better than this area. But whilst it's doing that, I'm going to take opportunity of a dead straight Roman road to show you there are some large fields in this area, so you know, it's a worthwhile exercise exploring some of this, I suspect, especially in multiplayer. Here on the right there's some chicken sheds, which is going to be an egg sale point not in the game yet. A little field nestled in the wood there. And again, we're back to almost untouched areas. And off to the left, that's the entrance into the garden centre, which will have a sell point and for manure slurry. Not very realistic selling slurry to a garden centre, but you know, it needs to go somewhere. But there'll also be a sell point around the back for some production stuff, because they do actually have a food shop in there that sells local produce. So bread, cake, honey, that sort of thing will be able to be sold there. And then this is now the A15. There's a little track which goes over the old bridge, which is actually a bridge in the game, and the road bridge isn't modelled yet, just like all the others, but it's quite nice. And then we're up into a bit more hilly land off to the left, and the fens stretch out to the right, but we're very close to the edge of the map itself. So I'll just drive up here. Those crows are bloody annoying. I mean, it's not dead flat. If you're in the cab itself, there is some elevation, but it's certainly not Cumbria or the Dales or anything like that. Off to the right there, those barns there are actually going to be the workshop for the vehicle repair shop, and there's a fuel station here where you can get your fuel. That was a furniture shop, that little weird square building, but it's closed down. And up here, smaller fields, and we're coming up to a farmyard where my plan is that the player will have the opportunity to make their own yard to a degree. It's a flat, open area really, because I know some players like that. It's not what I want, but you know, let's let people have their own experience and design the map so that it can be used in different ways. So we'll just come off here and up here. So all I've done is place a single barn and a fuel tank, of course. And there you go, you can see it's a pretty open space for them to do what they want. Can probably get quite a lot in there if you plan it out nicely. And there's a little grass field as well, which you kind of could get some sheep in maybe, or whatever. I did contemplate putting a sheep pen up here on the map itself, but I wasn't too sure whether to have a lot of husbandries pre-placed or let people do their own thing, so I've gone for the latter. And now we're going to go up the road to a little hamlet called Obthorpe, which is so small, blink and you miss it, but it's at the end of well, it's not at the end, it's a good point for when I walk from my house to turn around and head back, because there's quite a few little tracks leading from it and to it, so it gives a nice little couple of mile walk in an evening. And we're starting to climb now, and you can see the ditches are still here, but a lot of these ditches need to be re-terrained. I originally had some bits in that were like 3D models of ditches rather than the terrain, and actually they look terrible. So I'd forgotten this little farm here. This is another yard that you could start from. This starts with very little storage in terms of barn space, but there is quite a lot of land area, but you do get a couple of farmer silos to use if you so desire, and you also get the chicken placeable, which is down here. Try not to go in that ditch. So this is a chicken placeable, although where the chickens actually are I don't know, because the navigation mesh is being a little bit tricky, but there's all sorts of fun to be had in that regard. And now I'm just going to come up this field margin. This track runs all the way back down to basically Catesbridge, which is where the garden centre is. So there's multiple kind of back ways around the map, as well as just using the main roads, which will lead you to explore and find as you play the map through. Here we are, Opthorpe. I've put the sign up but not the writing yet, and speed signs. And now, again, some missing textures on the right. On the left, however, we've got some buildings that I've just put in that I've retextured and remade, which I'm really quite pleased with. I think they look pretty good. Nice PBR textures with decent sort of depth and so on. So completely static objects, they can't be used. But this is probably one of my favourite yards, probably because it's the one I'm most familiar with in real life. Although it looks not very much like this. I've put some additional things in. There's a little silo there, tipping point, which will take pretty much everything, and a couple of open sheds. This is the one I've bought for my test play, while I'm doing some contracts and making sure things work okay. And you also get this farmyard here, which comes along with some more sheds, the fuel tank, which I don't think has anything in it. Yep, empty. And I'm having trouble with these grain doors at the minute. The triggers are not working for some reason. So another thing to figure out. It's all fun and games. And then you get another shed down here, which is currently missing its door entirely, but at least you can get in it, unlike that grain barn there. So those are the main sell points and farmyards on the map, and just to give you an idea of where we are now, bring the map back up, we're heading back towards the middle. The animal dealer's down here. And you can see we've pretty much gone right around the map in the two videos. So the next video, I think I'll break down some of the field sizes and show you some of the more recent progress I've made in terms of additional buildings. There's a whole new sell point up at this area, and I've added some other bits and pieces in, like a debris crusher and so on. But we'll call it there. Thanks for watching, and cheers.